everybody, how you doing? This is a very pivotal video that we're about to have today. A lot of information, especially for that non-knowledgeable cat like us. But before we start, first thing we want to do is we want to give a shout out to Dwayne and Sharita.
And the Clay family.
And the Clay family. We also want to give a shout out to Eminem, Michael and Michelle.
Right.
So,
that's the Clay family.
Oh, that's the Clay family. Oh, okay. All right. But we wanted to tell them that we appreciated their company. A couple of folks came to visit, came to actually interact with the off-grid life, and it was very fulfilling for us to actually see people out there really digging into what we're trying to present. Again, we're not doing this for any compensation. We don't get no money. We don't, nobody sends us anything. We're strictly doing this out of the love of our heart for people out there, for us to understand this can be done. And once you succeed at doing this, it's a freedom. And I'm just going to throw this in here real fast. Everyone's doing all this protesting and wanting to protest a system. Well, I offer you this. The greatest protest you can ever have is to let go of the system.
That's right.
That's the greatest protest you can make. Imagine if enough of us truthfully protest the system. How do you expect a system to give you equality when it never has? You think marching or fussing or holding up a sign is going to make equality happen? No. You have to get your own equality. You have to create your own system. So I'm going to stop there. I don't want to get too deep, but I just had to throw that in there for those of you who are conscious, who are consciously waking up. That might really resonate with you on the depth of my intent of saying that. So with that being said, we are sitting in our what, baby?
Our bedroom.
We are sitting in our bedroom. We have a bedroom, a master bath, and a master closet.
Yeah.
So this is our bedroom we're coming to you from today. So we are very, very happy.
Very.
We're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
And to come from a place, I was reminiscing, looking through a video, and reminiscing when we were pulling trees up, and I was pulling them out of here on my ATV, and to now be sitting in my bedroom. I gotta just give my wife a big fat kiss. I'm sorry. Because without her, this could not have been done.
Yeah.
This could not have been done. So, we're extremely happy today. Boy, oh boy, do I have some lessons.
Yeah.
So, first I'm going to let my wife do her lessons, then I'm going to do my lessons. Go ahead, baby. What's your lessons?
Well, my lesson, I think, as I watch a lot of the off-grid shows, whether they be on TV or on YouTube, a lot of things that I see negated in those shows is the functionality of the home, no matter what type of home that they're building. They negate the installation process. They negate the plumbing, whether it's coming in the home or out the home. And those things, in my opinion, are very, very important, and the foundation of the home. Those things, I think, are really significant in the build of the home. And I stated on another video, a lot of you are anticipating us getting to the final look of how this shipping container home is going to look. But I think it's important for us to show you every part of this build that would in your home. Some may perceive as an overkill, especially when it comes to this bedroom and doing the flooring and laying out tarp for the crawl space. But you really have to think about, okay, if I need to get under there, how am I going to put the plumbing pipes in? If something is leaking, then I got to get under there to get to it. Think about when it gets cold, are those pipes going to freeze if they're exposed? Those are the type of space, doing the flooring, and really be specific about all of that so that you can understand really how important that is.
I couldn't agree more. Sometimes we sit back and we watch these DIY shows thinking we picking up some lessons or some clues.
And we come back with a whole bunch of questions.
I'd be like, they on some bullshit.
For real.
Man, be careful watching them shows because they leave a lot of stuff
A lot of details out.
So we are trying very diligently to give you guys those details. Your brain is in a place where you're consciously awakening and you're starting to realize getting back to nature is your calling, but you just don't know really where to start or how to do. We want to give you the details so you can wrap your brain around it. So you can say, okay, not only am I just going to buy 2 shipping containers and set them side by side, I still got plumbing, I still got a foundation, I still got insulation, I still got wiring, I still got, these aspects that are required. I got a roof system. And you have to understand how these things will reflect in your home. What R value, R10, R20, R30. I didn't know what the hell R values were. Until I started researching it and it was like, oh, okay. Because in the summertime, you want your house to stay cool.
That's right.
Because we're living off solar power. So just flipping on the air conditioner isn't going to be a everyday concept. Now, we will have a generator connected, and there might be some days where we'll have a mini split and we'll turn it on. But fundamentally, we're building this house so it'll stay cool without an air conditioner. These are the things you got to think about way ahead of time in your build. So, like my wife said, yeah, some of this stuff might look like overkill, but I'm glad we're doing it.
Right.
I had to get under here just when we were doing this task, putting the floor down, and I was glad as hell. My wife said, put a tarp under there. So luckily we have a tarp flooring underneath our flooring. So as I'm crawling under there, I'm not crawling through a bunch of dirt and rocks. I was crawling on a nice smooth tarp, and it was cool, So these are kind of some of the things she's referring to as far as little details that might look like overkill, but, we think it adds to the value, to the structure, and the integrity,
Not only that, but when you think about, your heating and cooling functionality, whether you have a wood burning stove in the wintertime, depending on how cold it gets where you are, or how hot it gets in the summertime, doing overkill initially in your build and making sure that it's properly insulated will save you a lot of money on the resources that you're going to use to heat and cool your home.
True.
Whether it be a propane tank for your heater or you're using a wood burning stove. Well, if it's not insulated properly, you're going to blow through a lot of wood and propane. And same thing with the air conditioner. So, you think about that stuff and you rather spend it initially in your build than to have to spend it after the fact just to be comfortable in your home.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like that leveling lesson.
Right.
Of the ground.
Exactly. Right.
All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into my lessons. All right. I stated, I'm not sure if it was the last video or the video before that, I said do some research learning about levels, squares, and rulers. So I'm going to do a little bit into the ruler this lesson because it's kind of relevant in making you guys understand something. Our floor, that you'll have a beam that comes through the bottom. These are the cross beams that the plywood's set on called joists. Well, what 16 inches on center means is that from the center of one board to the center of the next board is 16 inches. So, let's see. Let me just do it this way. There we go. All right, so that would be 16 inches on center. Okay. The reason why it's 16 inches on center is because the plywood is 48 inches wide. So on 48 inches wide, you're going to get 1, 2, 32, uh,
64, 48.
32, and then 48 every 16 inches. So what that means is the plywood will land halfway on one, and the plywood will land halfway on the other one. So that means you can drill and connect each piece of plywood on that seam so that it'll butt up evenly on this 1.5 inches, which gives you 3/4 of an inch to each side to put a screw in. Learn that. Understand that. If you look at a ruler, on all rulers, you got a red 16. Every 16 inches, you see a red mark. That's how you know 16 inches on center. Okay? Dry wood, plywood, and luckily for me, cement block are all on the same concept. So when the very intelligent people who came out with this stuff, they probably call them Masons, but not giving no kudos to the Masonic concept. But the building masons, people that are builders, is what I mean when I say masons, not that other stuff. They understand these things, and these things are real crucial to what's called sacred geometry, and understanding geometry on a whole nother level, and understanding building on a level. So I'm throwing you some clues, I'm throwing you some hints of things to research and start looking up, to start understanding the building concept, okay? So 16 inches on center, every red mark is 16 inches. Block, wood, plywood are all in fours. Most of these kind of woods, board wood, is in linear feet, which is all in twos. We built this room 16 by 24, which gave me a perfect math by fours. So what it allowed me to do was buy plywood that would be symmetrical in building this floor, which you'll see as you see later in the video when we build the floor. I didn't have to do a whole bunch of cutting. That's the point I'm trying to get across. Again, if you don't have an architect, or if you do have an architect and you're not sure about him or whatever, I don't know. But these are the kind of things that should be in plans.
Right.
But if you get somebody that doesn't give you these things, these are the things you don't know. And if you're a novice builder, these are things you don't know. So as you start analyzing your building process, do not, and I say this if I had a big old sign, do not underestimate knowing the math.
Right.
And when I say the word know, understand that familiarity is not the equivalent of knowing.
No.
Okay? My wife can attest to that as it relates to the fractions.
Right.
You know? Everybody know they well, they think they know they fractions.
Right. Until it comes to you building something and you realize how important that little bit of information is, especially with measuring, because, you may think, okay, it's just a little bit off, that ain't gonna mean nothing. It means a hell of a beans in the overall concept of how your project will turn out. That 1/8 of an inch off will make everything off.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very important to really understand your math, understand the importance of leveling, and understanding the accuracy of measurement. You can't,
Can't say that.
emphasize that
We can't
enough.
say that enough. If I say it 10 more times,
For real.
I did not say it too many times.
And it's with everything, and you have to keep it in the back of your mind and practice it with everything, even something that you don't feel is significant in what you're building. You have to do it in everything so that it just connects in your brain and it's automatic, because
Comes second nature.
right, because otherwise it will be a disaster, and you really have to take your time. And I say that, a lot of people, even the couples that came out to visit us, our YouTube subscribers, ask, well, what's the most important thing in this? And my answer just never changes, and it's take your time. Take your time, take your time, take your time. We were doing this and we were talking it over, and it's so good to have dialogue and think about things because we were discussing the installation, and we went and bought the installation. We were all ready to put the boards down, and we went and bought everything, and then it's like, okay, well, what about the plumbing for the master bathroom? How we gonna get the pipes in, and how we gonna get the excess water out? And we didn't think about that, and so we had to stop and say, okay, well, if we gotta do that, we can't put these boards down yet. So, it was just, us communicating and talking and really taking our time and going through the whole process instead of being too anxious and presumptuous and trying to hurry up and get something done and
Yes,
finished.
yes. And study,
Yeah.
And obviously, those of you who are watching our videos are. So when I say that, I
Yes.
give you an applause.
Right.
Because that's what I do. I have to study and learn this stuff because I never did none of this.
Right.
What I do is I look for flaws in the videos that I watch and the people I watch, and I look for those who are really astute in what they're teaching, so that I can be more proficient and more precise. Um, but again, I want to, just leave this video with the concept of study your ruler, study your square, study your level. Even if you want to lay block, get 3 or 4 blocks and lay them first, just by itself, not even part of your build.
Right.
Take a class if you have time or you can, even if it's an online class about building, about some of this stuff. If I could go back retroactively and I would have had more foresight in this journey that I took on, that's something I would have done. I would have started taking some classes about building. So when I got out here, I would have been boom, 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 tap, tap, tap.
Tap.
It's a little inside joke. Things would have went smoother. And not that things haven't went okay, but we've had a couple of little, resets. No, they're not on video, but we did have them.
Yes, we did.
Like when we dug the foundation for this thing, we did that thing 3 times. We didn't show us screwing that up 3 times in our video.
But we did.
But we did.
Literally.
Literally. We came back one time and we was like, what idiot dug this?
Right.
Then we looked at each other. Oh, us.
Right.
So we want to leave this video with really emphasizing, know you're measuring. If you're really serious and you're really going through this awakening process and you're really starting to feel what we're speaking to about being free, being independent of this system, letting the system have no control over you, doesn't have to provide your food. We grow our own food. Doesn't have to provide me water. I drilled my own well. It doesn't have to provide me electricity. I got solar power. And it doesn't have to provide me heat because I got a wood burning stove, and as you can see, I got plenty of trees. So if you're beginning to get that point and realizing when I'm done with this, I ain't got no mortgage note and no bills, and that's beginning to resonate with you as reality, take time and start studying it. Take time and practice it. Take time and take a class. The more of those things you do ahead of the curve of you actually jumping in the water, the better equipped you're going to be.
Yep. And the less headache you'll have.
Yep.
Yeah.
So on that note, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Till next time, be happy, be free.
Be free.
there? Look at my level.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go do that side next.
Okay.